We are here today to talk about a topic that I think applies to every organization and is oftentimes overlooked, or there's a lot of assumptions around the fact that we might hear from a donor that we are in their will, and 10 years, 15, 20 years goes by. And
congratulations.
Well, yes. However, it may not be what we think we're getting.
Really?
Yes.
Why's that?
Well, it could be that they said you're in my will, but there's not really a lot of assets in their estate, that most of their wealth was maybe in their retirement plan. Or we really never take the time to have the conversation with the donor to see what they're hoping the impact of the gift will be. And in that process, educate them on the difference between what's in their estate and what would be outside their estate.
All right, so let's explore those for a little bit.
Yes.
And get a little bit more in depth. Mm-hmm. So donor tells us you're in the will. Mm-hmm. And we have a conversation and they say, we want to make an impact here. We're going to create an endowed fund. It's $100,000. We provide you in the will. 25 years goes by. Donor passes away. And lo and behold, you're not even in the will. What went wrong? Well, one of the things that goes wrong with a lot of charities is it's kind of the congratulations, thank them and forget them. To steal a phrase from our plan giving guru down in Texas, mm-hmm. You know who I'm talking about?
Dr. James.
Dr. James. Mm-hmm. Thank him and forget him. So the mistake that's made is they basically list you in the Legacy Society, and that's the last time the donor hears from you. And that's a mistake. You have to steward the donor as if they were an annual fund giver, a major gift giver, because this is really one of the largest gifts they're going to make. They feel good about doing it for you, but if you forget them, things happen. You could have health issues, there could be marital issues, somebody could die, wills get rewritten, and when they get rewritten, if you haven't talked to them in 20 years, forget about it.
As we say in Philly.
So what are some of the other issues?
Well, how about up front, having the conversation with the donor? When a donor says, you're in my will, don't worry about it, or you'll get whatever's left, right? Now, they may not initially be open to a conversation about it, right?
That's true. But eventually, if you keep talking to them, mm-hmm. and keep stewarding,
build trust and rapport,
and build the trust and rapport, most donors, if you ask them, what impact would you like to make, eventually will get around to tell you the impact. And if you're talking through the impact that they can make and the level of impact, for example, what we like to do in some of the educational is talk about setting up an endowed account. And to set up a certain endowed account, we have a minimum of $100,000. So if that's something you could see yourself doing, mm-hmm. and if you get an affirmative answer, right now that we're at least talking about $100,000. $100 million. I like that result.
I like think big, right?
$100,000, and have that discussion. And eventually it leads to a discussion of how your will is formulated. Are we getting a sum certain, a bequest? Are we getting a residual bequest, which is a percentage of the will? So let's say somebody says, you're going to get 10% of my estate. And you have that conversation. They say, okay, my estate is $1 million. So that would be $100,000 is what you think. Mm-hmm. But when they say my estate is $100,000, what do they mean? Most people think of all their assets. So they don't compartmentalize that. And I think you mentioned that there are beneficiary designations, that there are paid on death accounts that you can have. And so somebody says, $1 million. Keep in mind, real estate's the number one asset most people own. Number two is?
Retirement accounts.
Mm-hmm. 401ks, IRAs, 403bs, things of that nature. And they don't pass through the will. So if you're in the will for 10% and an individual dies and all that's in there is their $200,000 house, by the time it's said and done, assuming expenses go out, that's a $20,000 bequest that you're getting. They think they're giving $1 million, not necessarily understanding that the other $800,000 is in their 401k or their IRA. It's for you.
You know where you left off?
So if they tell you that it's 10% in your will, they're thinking 10% of $1 million, but what they don't understand a lot of times is $250,000 or $200,000 the value of the house. That means there's $800,000 in their 401k. And if you're not listed as the beneficiary for 10% of that, you're not getting any of that because that doesn't pass through the will. So a lot of time it's just understanding what's in what's in the will and how it's comprised, and making sure what assets are in what compartment. And the good thing about having that discussion is sometimes you can find and help the donor. So, for example, what happens if your children are listed as the beneficiaries of your 401k? So let's say there's $1 million in the estate, and really $1 million there, and $1 million in your 401k. Mm-hmm. And your donor says to you, I've given my 401k to my children, and I've given you, charity, $1 million. And the answer because?
Warning signal, because of the pre-tax dollars in the retirement account.
Correct.
Right.
So when the children take the money out of the 401k, they're going to have to pay taxes on it. And yes, you can stretch it, but they're still paying taxes on it. And by the time you're said and done, maybe you're only getting $700,000, assuming a 30% tax break. If the children receive the $1 million out of the state, they'd get the full $1 million. There is no income tax or no tax ramification to that in this simplistic, look at the thing. Mm-hmm. So if you say to your donor, why did you actually have that set up that way? It's smarter to leave the charity in the 401k, because when the charity gets it, we are tax exempt. We don't pay taxes. We get $1 million from there, assuming it's there. And then the children get the $1 million from the will tax free. You've just kind of maximized and taken the benefit by not having to pay taxes on the money that you're leaving. So by saying that to your donor, you've actually helped them. And I've had that example in a couple of cases where the donor's going back to the attorney and said, well, Mr. Toll has gone back to their attorney and said, Mr. Toll had mentioned this. Is this true? And the attorney says, yeah, it is. Then why did you have me do it this way? Change it. And they've changed it, and it's actually worked out better for the donor. It's now given us more validity and more trust by doing that for the donor.
Good stuff.
So,
well, we have lots more good stuff as well. If you want more of this, if you want this for your organization, if you're looking to get your program to the next level and you want some help, please give us a call, 610-653-7906. You can email us, info@giftplanningdevelopment.com. And I have been Joe. I am still Joe.
And I'm still David.
And we'll see you around.